Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fandomology, where fandoms collide. And right away, we've got another panelist joining. Let me go ahead and get him in here, Mr. Phil McCracken. But Phil is not alone with me tonight. We got Trevor Kushinja. We've got Glenn, who goes by LA Kush, yeah, and Chris, who is Wizard. How are you guys doing tonight?
I also wanted to say I also wanted to add I got my fiance here, Rose.
Oh, hi, Rose.
Yep.
I'm just being quiet.
I
All right,
understand.
I'm gonna I just cut my camera off.
Now doing my hair.
I figured
fine.
if I cut my camera off, might save my phone battery a little bit.
Yep, I just cut mine off. Speaking of new phones, if you haven't heard, Paul, I got a new phone today.
Oh, nice. What'd you get?
Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Had to get a new one because my old phone, the charging was wonky, and it ended up having a crack on the back of the phone when I took the case off. So,
Oh no.
Yep.
Well, anyways, tonight is going to be an open panel, and I'm going to be trying something new tonight. So, I've really missed doing these non-gaming stream open streams. And so I want to try and start it where every Friday night we have these open panel streams. And here's the thing. Sometimes there won't even be a topic to them. It'll just be we talk about whatever comes to our mind. But tonight we do have a topic. And our topic is, and this was kind of inspired by a conversation I was having with Trevor at work. What makes, in everyone's opinion here, a video game a 10 out of 10 masterpiece? Whoa, what was that?
Sorry, I was blowing something off real quick.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. We just lost Glenn. That was weird.
That happens. Get used to it.
I gotcha. And we have another panelist in here. Trevor, you know this guy really well.
Howdy, Nate.
Oh, morning.
How was your day, bud?
All right, I'm going to say this just to break the ice. So, excuse me, do you guys work here?
Really?
Depends on the day of the week.
Asshole.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I pressed something and
Yes,
blew me out of it.
Thanks for Yankee State.
Ooh,
Thanks
we're
for that,
starting off
Phil.
strong tonight.
Thanks for that, Phil.
All right. So let's get into this. Like I said, what makes a video game a masterpiece? So it's pretty much widely accepted, obviously, that no video game is made equal. There are some that are really good, some that are really bad, and then some that are just kind of in the middle, kind of mediocre. And then, of course, there's the two extremes where you've got like the really, really bad games, like, at least according to Michael, Lord of the Rings, Gollum. And then you've got the games that are considered out and out classics, masterpieces, like, for example, the original Final Fantasy VII. Or, well, we're going to talk about that tonight, different games that we consider masterpieces. So before we get into that, let's talk about this. What criteria is important to determine whether or not a game is a masterpiece? Black Dragon's got a good one here. He says, it's all in the eye of the beholder, depends on your individual tastes.
Exactly.
I agree on that one.
Individual.
Yeah,
But if you're saying what is a masterpiece, like seller, it's always go by first sales. What
Exactly
game sells? All right. Elder Scrolls sells. All right. Masterpieces, if you want to call them that. You got Madden every year, even to this day, probably outsells everything and everybody.
Can I add to that?
If you don't play it no more, even if you stop playing it, it's still guaranteed to sell a couple million copies.
Right.
And that's nothing to sneeze at.
Real quick, Glenn, you had something to add to that?
1990. So
Yeah, to add the Madden, the WWE series, the 2Ks of that came out, like 2K24, for example, that could be up there in price as well.
I would always go by what game and how they sell. And of course, the infamous Skyrim. It seems like every time they do something to that game, it automatically sells.
Right.
And Call of Duty, because we always get a new one of those every year.
Yep.
yes.
Or any
Honestly,
DLC in general.
And
Yeah.
honestly, with the Madden, the WWE, Call of Duty, and a bunch of other things, it feels like they're literally putting out the same game every year, and it still sells like hotcakes.
Yeah, Call of Duty is
Mhm.
probably the oldest offender of that, if we're
Right?
being brutally honest.
Well, Madden, you can say,
Yeah.
because they only changed the roster a little bit. And people have complained and say, well, give us a DLC so we don't have to buy another copy the next year where you can buy a DLC. And they tried that for Madden 2000 and I think it was 2001, where if you had 2000, you can actually buy the DLC and it will update the roster. But I guess EA figured they would lose more money because you figure a DLC might go for $10 if you're lucky. And if they charge you for a whole brand new game, it's what, 50?
Yeah,
So
these days,
Well,
$60.
Well, that's how a lot of games operate. They hide a lot of their interesting content behind a paywall. Look what Super Smash Bros. Ultimate did, for example. You got a whole roster of like 74 from the get-go for like $60. And then they hide 12 DLC characters behind the same price. And they had the most interesting mechanics of them all.
I thought it was more than 12.
Well, you had the 5 in Fighter Pass 1, the 6 in Fighter Pass 2, and then Piranha Plant as the bonus.
Fair enough. Real
And
quick,
I
Black
would-
Dragon says, sorry, Nate. He says, just because they quote unquote sell doesn't necessarily make them good. And that is a good point. I've
Yes.
got a IGN list here that I'm going to pull up in just a moment of the 10 best selling video games. And
If
he
they
also
don't
says
sell,
EA has
but
sucked.
if they don't sell, they ain't making no money. Hence, they wouldn't be putting out another version of the game.
Right.
But I believe Nate had something to add, though.
So I was kind of going back to that DLC thing and putting really kind of the best parts of the game behind a paywall. And it's really interesting that, of course, Black Dragon is pointing out EA has sucked for many years. I think they probably got the most called out for doing something like that. Was it? Oh, it was Battlefront 2, I think it was. The new one, not the
The-
original.
Oh, yeah.
Battlefront
collection.
Remastered? You talking
No,
Battlefront Remastered or
No, the Battlefront that me and Ian play, 2017.
okay?
Yeah, the crappy one by E EA.
So, looking at sales, and me and Trevor and Virginia also, who said something earlier, she said, I will not be joining tonight, but I hope you all have a great time discussing this topic. Thank you, everyone, for joining and supporting Paul's channel. And thank you, Virginia, for saying that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Me, Trevor, and Virginia kind of were already talking about this at work the other day. It's where I got the idea for the stream. And Virginia mentioned that in her mind, Minecraft was a masterpiece, which I agree it is, and that it is one of, if not the best-selling video games of all time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to briefly scroll through this list here. This is updated as of March 20th, so about 9 days ago. And we're going to look at whether or not these games, well, we're just going to look at them and see what we think of them, whether they're good or whether they're not. So right here it says, just outside the top 10, we got Animal Crossing New Horizons at 40.79 million. At number 12, we got Pokemon Gen 1 at 47 million.
Must have been talking about like red, blue, and green for that one.
Yeah,
I would
red,
pro-
blue,
Or
red, blue, and
red,
yellow.
blue, and yellow.
Yeah. And at
Great.
11, the original Super Mario Bros. At 48 million.
Direct
That's not-
from the
that is-
Nintendo.
That is not a surprise at all.
Yep.
Now I'm
No.
curious. Okay, it says golf copies.
Yep. So this is copies, not dollars. So at number 10, we have the original Overwatch at 50 million copies. And I played the original Overwatch, but personally, it wasn't a game for me because I thought with a cast of characters like this, it could have had a great story mode. It didn't.
I think that's what killed Overwatch to me. The lack of a story mode. The online was a lot of fun when it felt like working for me. And it did win Game of the Year in 2016. But
That is true.
that's a good example of a game that started out with an insane amount of hype, and then it died pretty quickly.
Exactly.
And of course, the games that start with amount of hype, you get like T-shirts, you get like action figures, Funko Pops, and stuff, and then it feels like it over time, over the years, like what year did Overwatch come out? Like in the 2000 something around there.
2016.
Yeah, and here we are at 2024, exactly 8 years from then. And it seems like it slowly died down.
Exactly. And part of that, of course, is because of the sequel being highly controversial.
Yep. And sometimes the sequels to said games like Overwatch, etc., seem to either A, do well, or B.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
I mean, look at well, we'll get to that. Number 9, we've got The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt at 50 million plus copies. I've not played, so I can't comment.
I can attest to that. It's an absolutely beautiful game. I love it to death. I need to go back to it. It's amazing.
Yep.
Agreed. The only thing I had trouble with it is I'd always get lost and try to find my horse.
Well, Paul looks like this next one you could tell us a lot about.
Absolutely, and so can Phil. Number 8 is Elder Scrolls V Skyrim at 60 million plus. Although I got to caveat that is with probably a dozen different re-releases of that game at this point. You've got
topic, but what the heck is a caveat?
It's basically saying this is true, but
if you're going to put an asterisk there for Elder Scrolls, then you got to remember IGA or IGN here tends to do also get a lot of GameStop and resells. So do you count someone that bought a copy from the store, or do you count it when someone takes it back for a trade-in and someone else buys the trade-in? Do you count that as a sale?
Well, what if
that is true.
Well, let me ask you something there, Mr. McCracken. Let me ask you something about that. Sorry. Didn't mean to call you Mister, but
Oh! No, we were just laughing at Blazerhawk Darren's comment.
Yeah, it wasn't you, Glenn. It was what Darren said.
Yeah,
He said,
damn.
It's a masterpiece when the controls are easy for old farts like Phil and myself.
Holy.
I have no problems with a joystick or pad or a keyboard and mouse. No problems.
But what I was going to ask you is, what if said price starts at like 40 and then you go to like GameStop or JCD and how to get store credit, and they just give you like said price, like they say
reduced prices. I GameStop sometimes they'll give you $5 off. Sometimes they have a sale. I would still count it because it's a legit sale. What I can count as a resale, where, for example, say Paul got tired of his Skyrim, decided to take it to GameStop and trade it in, and the next person comes along, buys the game. Do you count that as buying it? Because it's used. The music industry, when you buy a CD, all right.
Let me scroll up
not
and
that
see
many
whether or not
people do
they're.
it. But if you buy a CD, I don't care, say it's a new Black Sabbath greatest hits, and you buy it, you copy it, and then you decided you don't want it anymore, so you take it to a store that you could trade it in, and the next person comes along and buys it used, the certification doesn't count that because it's a resale. You see what I'm saying? Now, it's different if the store orders it and you're giving it to as a discount. Since it's been already previous owned, you're not buying a legit another copy of the CD, so it doesn't count towards the sale. Like, they have gold, platinum, double platinum, triple platinum, diamond. They have all these different ratings for how much you can sell with certain CD. But reselling trade-ins doesn't count. And IGN has done, they sometimes count resales at GameStop and other stores as towards buying copies of the game.
And I looked while you were talking about that, Phil. I did scroll up into the article to find out whether or not they were counting used copies sold versus only new copies sold. They didn't say it. So we're going to assume, because they didn't specify, this is new and used copies sold here.
Well,
So,
and remember this one other thing real quick. Game of the year does not mean what people think game of the year. When you get, like, if you had a PlayStation, you see the red little thing at the top of the case, it'll say Game of the Year edition.
mhm.
Game of the Year edition doesn't mean it won an award, doesn't mean anything. The only thing a Game of the Year edition means most of the time is that you're getting the game and the DLCs included. That's the difference.
Yep.
It isn't
Yeah.
Game of the Year that someone says, "Oh, this won an award for Game of the Year." No. Always remember, they do trickery with the titles of some games when they put that Game of the Year.
Well,
Phil,
allow
I'm
me
not- Real quick, Trevor. Sorry, I'm not going to read this Black Dragon, but I'll let y'all read that for a second.
dear.
I bet you Black
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I gotta play I gotta play a clip for that one.
What? 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 What?
I haven't used that one in a
Technically, your
while.
Navy.
No.
They say them Navy boys once they come out.
No, I will also say this. I will say this relating to the Game of the Year topic. Game of the Year is a very subjective thing, and here's why. See, there is no set in stone Game Awards because everyone seems to have just accepted that Geoff Keighley's Game Awards are like the Game Awards, but no, there really is no the Game Awards because you have multiple different companies and multiple different shows and multiple different websites and all that want to grant Game of the Year. It's just, I guess, Geoff Keighley's Game Awards is what everyone now interprets as God's word when it comes to Game Awards.
And you have to remember, not all gaming companies participate at all gaming awards.
Yes, that is also true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why I say sales is probably the best number to go by. I'm still a little iffy on, resales. I have nothing against it, but personally, when you're counting, if someone says I sold 60 million copies, you would believe, going by the number, you would say, oh, 60 million copies sold. New, not resale,
Well,
And I would count, I'm pretty sure it does count downloading material like on Steam. Because we can pretty much say buying gaming disc in stores pretty much dying out. So
In that
yeah,
case,
it is.
look at that yawn, man.
We're entering the digital age. I do want to cut in though real quick. We're talking about sales. Sales is just one aspect of the criteria as to what makes a game a masterpiece, because think about it this way. A game could sell like millions upon millions of copies and be received poorly.
Paul, I'm going to
As
say
a great game could
Yeah,
sell
and-
not so well, but be the best thing since sliced bread.
you also have
Yeah,
those hidden
just look at how
gems.
many.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I was just about to speak along the same lines because there's like think of the GameCube, for example, because like a lot of the GameCube itself didn't have a lot of high sales numbers, but it did have plenty of memorable games that are remembered fondly, especially like from a nostalgic sense to this day.
Yeah, me and Trevor have talked about that pretty much to death at numerous times at work. Same with the Wii U. Just like the GameCube before, the Wii U was considered a failure by Nintendo, and yet it had a lot of great games on it.
Well,
In
the
fact,
thing
it
is,
Didn't every system have good games on it?
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
a huge thing is look a huge thing is if you look at the Switch's like game library, that's Nintendo trying to send the signal that the Wii U failed, because a large portion of Wii U games did wind up getting ported to the Switch.
Or getting a sequel.
You
Exactly.
know, 3DO had a good system back in the day, and 3DO was a company head to head with EA, and they even had their own console. But the problem was they didn't back their console, and they pretty much doing what PS5 does today. Don't make enough systems for everybody to have. You know,
Yeah, and the systems alone, with every single button switch and anything possible, that's still a hefty penny you're paying for it. I mean,
Yeah.
the PS5 alone was like what, 500 and some at least.
No,
Still
And
is.
then and the same
I will
thing goes for the Nintendo Switch OLED. That's like $300-400 at least.
It was $350 when I bought mine at the beginning of 2022.
Hmm.
Now, I will tell you guys this as well. I have like 9 categories here written down that are my personal criteria for a good game.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, let's finish the list and then we'll get into the other criteria. So I'm just gonna lightning round these real quick. Number 7, Red Dead Redemption 2 at 61 million copies sold.
Only played the first one.
Again, I can't comment.
I like
Neither-
Red Redemption.
Well,
Well,
it's the same guys who brought you the Grand Theft Auto series.
Here's one that we know really well, don't we, Chris, Trevor, and Glenn?
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's
From the many
it's
trolls above, buddies.
It's the origin of Jeffrey's favorite quote. I got booed.
And your
And it's, the
cousin.
and it's the highest selling game on the Switch, period.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And
And
Number
it's
5.
yours.
Number 5 is
Go ahead,
PUBG at 75 million. Again, I never played PUBG, so I can't comment. Number
Around
4
the
is
same-
Wii Sports.
PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
And this one,
Wow.
Oh,
this
yeah.
one needs another asterisk because it even mentions it in the article. While most entries on this list were bundled with a console at some point, Wii Sports was bundled with the Wii in nearly all territories at launch. At nearly 83 million copies sold, it's the top-selling single-platform exclusive of all time.
I played the hell out of Wii Sports, but only playing one of the games. Bowling.
Let me guess, bowling.
Yep.
That's like
I was a-
everybody's one.
I
Mine was
I-
either
I-
bowling or
yeah.
tennis
When-
myself.
when I was
I
younger,
played all 5 of them.
When I was younger, I was a boss at bowling on the Wii. But
I think Michael would disagree.
See.
shut up. But hey, I've gotten rusty over the years. Shut up.
That was some emotional damage.
Shut up.
Yes.
Don't worry, playing the Wii gets even harder when you have to sit there and send it through and something to translate it from the analog signal to a digital signal. The amount of perceived delay and latency is atrocious.
Or you
Yeah.
could be like a friend of mine and play it drunk.
I don't want to know. But anyways, Wii Sports, being completely objectively honest about it, it's basically a tech demo for the Wii, but it is a really well done tech
Mhm.
demo. And so honestly, I think by that metric, it is in the talking for being a masterpiece. Number 3, GTA 5 at 195 million plus copies. Again, never played it.
It is actually not a bad game, especially the
Boom.
story. Ironically, Trevor, you could play yourself in the game.
Interesting. Yeah, I know. It took me
Number
a second.
2, again, everyone is familiar with this game, Minecraft.
It's
In
not
fact, if I
like it's not like TDK gets in these moods where that's literally the only game we play for like a month.
Exactly. At some point, just as a side note, I'm going to have to do another stream where we're just on the realm and we're walking through Pixel Field.
Yeah, because it's increasing because of me.
Yes,
I
it
need
is.
I need to hop back on my internet. Decides it wants to pull its head out of his ass.
And then
I have a few
Number
picks
one
arts I
is
wanna do as
Tetris.
well.
At
An absolute-
520 million copies.
An
Holy
absolute-
bucket!
And
Huh.
Glenn, can I speak?
Damn.
Sorry.
I was
You know,
just gonna say
I'm-
Tetris is an absolute classic.
I'm disappointed that they don't include MMOs. Even though you're not buying a copy of the game, most people buy premium, if you want to call it that.
Mhm.
And I think they pretty much make more than single game releases like we have on this list.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I guarantee
Tetris
you most people play
is
more MMOs.
Still a pain in the butt to this day.
I've actually got to agree with Phil on this. Because actually, when you first brought up the idea to me, Paul, I did kind of mention your MMOs like World of Tanks, World of Warships, World of Planes.
Yes.
And definitely, World of Warcraft has got to be on that list somewhere for amount of downloads.
Yes. But then again, though, at least to me, a lot of those are also mobile games. So does
No.
that mean we also got to bring up Raid
The
Shadow
World of
Legends?
Tanks, World of
Uh,
Ships
Which,
are
by
not
the way,
mobile.
Raid Shadow Legends sponsors this stream. I'm kidding.
know-
we are
you
not
know-
sponsored.
You know,
Hey, if you wanted to do that, do Supercard.
I watch so many YouTubers now where, well, not YouTubers, but in just a lot of their videos, they do this like segue from their video and they're like, oh yeah, let's take a minute to talk about Raid Shadow Legends. And I'm like, this damn game again? I'm never gonna play it.
I know,
you,
right?
You don't see the commercials for Envy Online 1,000 times.
Either that or just be like, oh, this is sponsored by Candy Crush.
Exactly.
Candy Crush is cool.
Mobile games, though, that is a whole other beast as far as like whether that's a classic or whether it's a masterpiece or sales. That's a whole other beast.
Well,
But anyways,
you could say that
um,
to mobile games anyways, but
exactly.
Continue.
Alright.
Arguably,
So-
we do have to count those in this list because they are a video game.
They are.
Right.
They're
touche.
just. I mean, that is true, but then again, given how varied and wild mobile games are, everyone's going to have their own tastes. I mean, Black Dragon said it's all in the eye of the beholder, and that applies tenfold to mobile games.
Mm-hmm. Like one of my
Absolutely.
favorites right now is WWE Supercard. And
Okay.
other than that, I play like Marvel Strike Force, Marvel Snap, Pokemon Cafe Remix. I mean, Candy Crush. I'm addicted to it.
I
Yeah.
remember when Candy Crush first came out.
Same
Me and
here, dude.
So do I. Well, not when it really first came out, but I remember
Dude.
back in the early days of it at least.
Shoot, when I
me
was
too.
working at the plasma joint I used to work at, they had like 6 or 7 people when they were donating. They'd always play Candy Crush as well.
I was a senior in high school, and Nate was a freshman.
You know what's even funnier is when Phil decided to remind me that or who was it said something about one of the games on that list released in 2016. That
Overwatch.
gave me a realization.
What's that?
We're old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
exactly.
graduated.
If you don't mind me asking, Nathaniel, how old are you, man?
Yeah,
She turned 26 earlier this. What month is it? This month?
I'm only about
Oh,
5
baby.
years older than you, man.
Babies.
Okay.
All babies.
We know, Phil, you're old.
What do I need? A
baby.
pacifier?
Okay, film it, Grandpa.
Okay.
Young whippersnappers.
All right, getting back on topic now. So, see, Phil, you've even got Black Dragon doing it.
I don't control other people. They have their
I
own
know.
minds.
I know.
Well,
All right,
don't
so
worry.
getting back on topic, though, like we already said, sales is only just one factor, and not even an accurate one, into what determines whether or not a game is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. To me, and I'm sure everyone here, it's all about the experience of the game itself. So what we're going to do is we're each going to go around one at a time and just mention what our criteria is. Like, what do you look for in a game to determine whether it's good, bad, or even great? So for me, it's all about how fun it is. And to me, that comes from two different places. If there's a story to it, how engaging the story is, and how engaging the gameplay is. Like whether it's an easy gameplay or hard gameplay. Obviously, we don't want gameplay that's too easy or too hard. It's got to find that right balance.
Says the
Even-
master of easy mode.
Shut up, Trevor.
But yet, a lot of people.
Hey,
like
hey,
Circle-
hey! I play on easy mode too, and if you think I'm the master of it, I don't know. I
I'm
play
only
on
giving
easy
Paul-
mode, and if you don't like it, you can kiss my butt, dude.
Yeah, people
only-
are born
I'm
with
only giving Paul a hard
disabilities,
time.
and I try to accept some people's disabilities, but easy mode is not a legit disability. That's just
Never
lack
s-
of effort and willing of trying.
All right.
You
Paul,
don't
I'm
go
only-
play baseball and bring out the T-ball instead because you don't want them in the pitch, right?
All right. So getting back on topic, I've given my criteria. Trevor, your turn.
I have like 10 here. I don't
Okay.
want to take up a whole lot of time. All right. So I would say story is a huge thing to me, as is world
right
building and
back.
atmosphere. So okay. So like if the setting is accurately fitting to what you're going for, I think that also works really well. For example, Liza P, I was playing that not too long ago. That game went from robots gone rogue to diseased people that want to kill you. It went from, okay, this is glum and gloomy to straight up horror elements. And I loved it. It was a perfect transition.
Okay.
I think fun factor is also a huge thing. Something that we're not seeing a whole lot of nowadays, mostly because everything has been milked dry, is uniqueness.
Agreed.
There are so many games out there that have done pretty much everything already, or the same concept is being used over and over, like, oh, hot princess gets kidnapped by giant turtle, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's the Mario
or-
games in a nutshell.
or it could also be a thing of like, oh, this guy wants to take over planet Earth, even though planet Earth is really not even takeover worthy. That type of thing. If you can hand me a good, fresh, unique story that is not cliche and I have never seen before, that is a very easy way to win me over.
Okay.
Replayability is a huge thing to me as well. If I can go
Yes.
back to the game and play it again, find new things that I never did before, or if there's straight up multiple routes, or if you can build your character a different way this time, that's perfect to me. Fire Emblem Three Houses, one of my 3 favorite games of all time, is easily the most replayable game I've ever played.
Says the guy who
And-
played it about 10, 15 times already.
Try 25.
Whoa.
Holy smokes.
Trevor, Black Dragon is suggesting to you try Subnautica.
I actually have. I need to go back to it. And here's one that I think both Minecraft and Tears of the Kingdom have excelled in. Freedom.
Yes.
You can go anywhere you want, do whatever you want, explore every nook and cranny, build to your heart's content. I
So
think those two
Trevor can
games-
dress up as a whooper in a banana suit in Minecraft and just run around.
Oh, Trevor, careful with that.
Yes. Sorry. And also, innovative combat. A lot of games, especially Souls-likes, they feel like they have the same combat system. I'm looking for things that are fresh and new, whether that be like weapons that I have never thought of before, or special attacks that have never been introduced before, or something like that. And Paul, I know you're going to agree with me on the last one I'm going to give, which is not this one. This is the second to last. Voice acting is a big thing to me.
Okay. Yes, definitely.
Like, look at Persona 5 Royal. Paul, you've played that. The voice acting in that game is phenomenal.
Exactly. It helps the characters feel more real.
And for those of you
Can I
guys
add to
watching,
that?
Give me just a second. For those of you guys watching, I have 3 games tied for my favorite game of all time. Fire Emblem Three Houses, Persona 5 Royal, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Glenn, you may add.
Voice acting, definitely. I got a friend of mine. She is a voice actor in 2 different games, Astral Chain, and her and her husband both have done the newest Ratchet and Clank. I think it's like, isn't it like Rifts Apart? Yeah, Rift Apart. Both of them in Astral Chain. My friend, her name is Megan Hensley. She does the voice of Brenda Moreno, and then her husband is Jay Preston. I can't remember what character he plays on Ratchet and Clank: A Rift Apart, and I know I just know that this Megan Hensley I actually went to high school with.
Gotcha. And I will say, Fire Emblem Three Houses also has some. All the voice acting in that game is phenomenal. Now, Paul, I feel like you and Nate will both agree with me on this final one. The game has to withstand the test of time.
100%.
Oh yeah.
Meaning,
Certain games. Let's look at one of the most infamous examples, or famous, depending on what side of the fence you're on. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I might have my reservations about that game because of its fans, but the game itself is great. That game has very easily survived the test of time. It's set the bar for not just Zelda, but video games as a whole.
Yeah, 100%.
And Ocarina of Time is the prime example of a game that has flawlessly survived the test of time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
However, you have games. Let me think of an old game that you've probably heard of, but didn't survive the test of time. Of course, now I can't think of one. So, okay, Banjo-Kazooie. No, that one did survive. Okay, there are plenty of games out there that were good, but just didn't stack up to the test of time.
Right. And again, that's only because the hardware back then was more limited than what we have now, and they tried to work with what they had, but of course some succeeded better than others.
Actually, I did think of one that was really good but didn't survive the test of time. It was back on the GameCube. It's called Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy. It's on Switch. I've played it. It's a phenomenal game, but I understand why it did not survive the test of time.
Okay.
And some games, it's not their fault. It's just people tend to not remember certain ones. For no fault of their own, it's just how time went.
Of course. So with that, Chris, your turn. What are some of your criteria to determine what makes a masterpiece video game?
Well, first, I'm probably just going to end up repeating some of Trevor's because, I don't have a whole lot to say that hasn't been spoken already. But one is replayability. Is it interesting enough to go back to and replay again and again, more than once? And second is is the side content interesting enough to pursue, if it's actually or going to be beneficial in the long run towards finishing the story or doing the most you can in the game. For example, if I have to get some cosmetic item that's going to require a bunch of endless grinding, is that going to be worth if I think that's not going to be worth my time to pursue, then I don't do it.
Of course.
Another one is a good challenge. If it's something I know I can do and it doesn't take me too many attempts, then it's definitely a good challenge. Or if it's endlessly repeating and failing at something I know I can do, then all bets are off. I'm just gonna look up a guide. I know some gamers are gonna disagree with that, but fuck that. If I need to find some. Sorry, but anyway, if there needs to be if I need to take some new approach, and then I'm gonna do it.
Right. Real quick, I want to jump in and highlight something Black Dragon said. Replayability can also come into play using total game conversion mods, which is why games like, again, Skyrim and another one, Fallout 4, have still survived even to this day.
speaking of Fallout 4, apparently they've got a new mod coming, Fallout London.
That sounds fun.
Interesting.
So, Chris, is that all? Is that all that you had, or is there more?
Yeah. Last one was just like will it stand the test of time? Similar to what Trevor was getting at before, and
Okay.
there's like several games that do, but I'm not gonna like make a whole list of those.
I gotcha. All right, let's move then to Glenn. What about you? What do you look for in a game that you would consider a masterpiece?
Got to go with the replayability. I mean, if you're a gamer like me and you just want to grind the storyline, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna do like the main stuff and then go back and do the side stuff, or get what you missed. I absolutely like that. Test of time. How does it sell? But another thing that I would probably say is one of my quotes, especially with fighting games, you learn by getting your butt kicked, because I want to feel that experience, like even if you play on easy, medium, hard, difficult, or certain person must die mode, like how many times do you have to perish in order to get to get the said task done? I mean,
Right.
drop as many lives as you do in Mario Brothers, or drop as many times beating a boss or slaying a monster on Monster Hunter, or dropping so many darn times killing some sort of monster on Dark Souls or something.
Oh, I can
I'm
relate
sure
all
Paul-
too
I
well
love
with that.
Dark Souls.
Or
I'm-
I don't know. I mean, or doing, or basically, what I'm trying to say is like, I want good difficulty on like said missions.
If I may jump in on that, I think boss diversity and enemy diversity in games are a huge thing too.
Yes.
One of the biggest complaints with Breath of the Wild was the lack of enemy diversity, which Tears of the Kingdom very easily rectified.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, I think one of the Batman Arkham games, like every boss was like a copy paste of each other, or at least
That
the
was
majority of them.
definitely true of the first game, Arkham Asylum. And then as the games went in further, while the design, like the palette swaps might have been similar, they would come at you with different attacks. And then of course you got Arkham Knight, where everyone almost has a different attack.
Let me add to that.
Let
Go
me
ahead,
add,
Glenn.
and then you add. Oh, okay. Let Glenn add, then I'll finish.
Age Before Beauty.
If that's the case,
Then why
Trevor's
don't-
in last place.
Then why don't you go first, Glenn?
The old Mortal Kombat games, they had Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Ermac, Noob Saibot, and Smoke look exactly the same. Same goes for Jade and Melina. Over time, the graphics evolved and the appearances changed. Same goes for like enemies and like your side scroller beat 'em ups, i.e. Final Fight, Streets of Rage, Bionic Commando, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like even if you're taking on a guy that's got like brown pants and a blue shirt, and then you see that very same design, but it's like black shirt, gray jeans, or something like that.
Okay.
Let me conclude what I was gonna say. I was just gonna say, if the game has unique and interesting bosses that are not repeats of each other, but actually have unique patterns and attacks and varying levels of damage, speed, difficulty, I think that also creates a masterpiece game. I want things like I want unpredictability and unexpectedness to be thrown at me, basically.
Yeah, and that's totally fair. I can think of one game in particular that would have been a masterpiece, but for its honestly crappy bosses. But we'll get into that in a moment. Nate, what about you? What do you look for in a masterpiece game?
Well, I'd definitely have to agree. Replayability is probably one of the top things for me. Because, like, I'm currently browsing through my Steam library, and I'm like, ooh, I remember playing some of these games when they were in middle school and trying
Yeah.
to get around an M rating. I'm looking at some of the older CODs on that. But also, how hard is it? For some reason, there are some games where, in all honesty, I have them entirely because they're not really the hardest mechanically speaking. And that actually makes them very lethargic to play, especially when you're just trying to decompress, de-stress. Then there's other
Yes.
games that I look at on there. Okay, yeah, if I'm going to play this, be prepared to rage quit at least 30 times.
Can I add to that, please?
Yes.
It also depended on the systems it was. Over time, like the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, on up, it had those series of games that were damn near easy, if not impossible, to beat, i.e., NES TMNT. That had one of the highest that was like one of the most difficult Ninja Turtles video games ever.
Mhm.
The Ghosts and Goblins franchise, another difficult. They have over time alleviated a lot of the difficulty throughout some of these games.
Well, Glenn,
That
there is
way-
a reason. There is a reason they made games back then so hard. Due to hardware limitations, they could not make games super long, so to ensure you would play for a while, they made it absurdly difficult.
Exactly. I mean,
Wow.
most, if not a plethora of your 2D side scrollers and adventure games back in the day. Oh man, you're
Allow me to rip-
you're
Go ahead, Glenn.
grinding countless hours trying to beat those games, like from level 1 all the way to God knows what. Same
allow,
goes.
Real quick,
Go ahead,
Phil, what was that one game we were watching Mike stream? This was months ago. Was it one of the Mega Man games that he was streaming and just getting torn up on it?
I believe so. I think it was Mega Man.
Okay. Yeah, so again,
Even
another great example.
yeah, the Mega Man franchise alone. Oh man.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, getting back to you, Nate, is there any other criteria you have?
Okay, so let's see. I've went over. It's got to have that replayability. It also can be extremely easy and allow you to decompress. I've also went over. It can be extremely hard and challenging. One that really came to my mind was World at War for that, but also some other games I've seen. They got to be challenging because the AI really has to challenge you in some different way. Like, how do you approach this problem instead of grenade spamming?
Good point.
Or you have those bosses in said games that are like, oh, I can run through this without a challenge, or you got to go and say, how do I beat said boss without using a guide? Or you may just be like, oh, screw it, I'm just going to use a guide to see how he wants to beat.
Yeah, and for some Mario games, well, most of the time you gotta you take down bosses in like 3 hits, but depending on the game, you get like different ways of doing that. Whether you're using a power up, whether you just jump on them, like numerous different ways to achieve the same objective.
Or deplete
True.
their health bar. Or anyways, I mean,
Yeah.
shoot,
And then-
Kingdom Hearts franchise itself, you're depleting 4 or 5 health bars for like one mid boss, and then you get to the bigger boss and you're depleting like 8 health bars, and holy mackerel.
I gotta say, when I'm struggling with when I'm struggling with a boss in a game, and then I whittle that health bar down, and then finally, just cut that last sliver off, and then there's another one hidden behind it. That is honestly one of the biggest oh shit moments in any video game I've ever played.
Oh, I'm gonna beat him. Oh, I'm gonna beat him. You get that
Real-
last health
okay.
bar in that. You're like, oh,
Real quick on that note, Trevor, I can only imagine your reaction when you were fighting Ganondorf in Tears of the Kingdom, and his health bar just keeps going.
Dude, I was so mad. I'm like, yes, he's finally dead. And then he start regenerating it, and I'm like, okay, this isn't so bad. Then it goes all the way to the other side of the screen, and I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. Now it's on.
Right. So,
Yeah,
Nate, is there anything
well-
further?
I finally remembered my last point that really kind of sticks out to me. Is games that have a good story, like we mentioned Grand Theft Auto. I really liked the story in that earlier.
San Andreas is my favorite.
Ooh, personally, I'm a 5 man.
You have your fine. It's all good, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Phil, what about you? What is your criteria for what makes a masterpiece game?
Well, as we already mentioned, sales. Even though I ain't responsible or have anything to do with the sales, if it's a masterpiece, it's got to sell. If it doesn't sell, no one's playing it. That's just the overall fact. But if
Right.
you're asking for me, what I like in games, depending on if I'm playing RPGs, and let's throw this out there, mostly we're talking right now tonight RPGs. I want RPG that has playability, has support. I don't like games that you buy on day one and it's full of bugs. You know,
So, yeah.
that's why some games, since I've been a gamer since I was a kid with Atari 2600, didn't have that problem. But as we got further along with these systems and downloads, yeah, sometimes I wait. I'll wait 3 or 4 months before a game gets released before I even think about buying it. There are exceptions. Hogwarts was an exception. I didn't run into any problems getting Hogwarts or having any issues playing Hogwarts. So that I like to know ahead of time when I'm buying a game that they're going to have other things included in the game. You know, downloads. You know, I like games like Skyforge, Skyrim, that you got 3 or 4 DLCs with it. Okay. And I'll include the anniversary edition because that's pretty much, downloads.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead, add away.
Have you noticed when it comes to like add-ons, it seems like said month says, oh, you can add this, that, and the other, and then it keeps on going. That
Yeah.
could increase like nostalgia ratings and that.
Yeah, I mean, there's
True.
games, or you can say Skyrim is nostalgia, but that's 2011, and here we are, 13 years later, and it's still selling.
Mhm.
Right?
Yep.
There's people born that never haven't been playing this game. But the worst thing I could say, and I'm going to put it in a different category, is the sports games. And I'll even throw some wrestling games in there. There have been some wrestling games that we got, they sold, but I think it was 2018 WWE. The game was released and it was total trash.
That was
couldn't be
that
played.
was 2K20.
There you go. Thank you.
Okay, real quick, we got another panelist I'm going to bring on here. We got Mr. Real Wade Nation Gaming Clips. How's it going, bud?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing well. Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
So, just to get you caught up, we're talking about what makes a video game, in our opinion, a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. And right now, Phil is currently sharing what his criteria is for that. So go ahead, Phil.
I will say if a game is across all platforms,
Okay.
PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and whatever other systems that's out there. If you got a game that's on all 4, I would consider it a masterpiece. Even though sometimes certain games can't be on the opposing system because they're contracted that way. But most of the games, if you notice, like a Skyrim, that's multi-platform. So,
Yes.
What do you do with the retro games then, Bill?
well, Depends on the retro game. Like the last release remaster, what was it called? Dark Forces. I love the original, not Battlefront, the remastered Battlefront.
Yes.
That should never have happened. It should never have been done. But I'll leave that for another day. Some remastered games are very good. The new Dark Forces, the remastered, I'm all for it. I'm all for taking these old classic games and upgrading, remastering for today. I'm all for it. I don't want no voice changing. I don't want nothing added to it. Leave it alone and just give me 2024 graphics. That's
Okay.
I'm fine with them type of remasters. If they're talking remasters and they're doing voice changes, adding more stuff into the dialogue, changes to the class, then it's not the same game. Call it something else. It's not. So, like I said, so far from what I heard, Dark Forces Remastered is supposedly no changes, just graphics updates, and supposedly it's a good game. So I
Okay.
would rebuy that game. I haven't played that game since 2001. That's probably before some of you guys were even born.
I'm a 90s kid, so I'm
Are you sure?
1992, Phil.
Oh, God bless. I remember 1992.
Yeah, I bet your Fred Flintstone was your cousin, so shush.
No.
Oh,
Oh, damn!
Good one.
Dirt is my cousin.
Woo!
Both in
Dirt. I
Alabama.
know Dirt since Dirt was made. And
Wow.
I was thankful for Dirt. When they say eat dirt, I was grateful for eating dirt. Dirt
Phil
was
is
the
so-
best friend back in the day.
Okay, you old dinosaur.
Phil is so old.
Okay,
He
Glenn,
had
that was
history class
good.
with God.
No,
But on that
no,
note-
Hey,
no,
Phil.
that's too far.
Hey,
now.
Phil.
No.
Hey,
Can I,
Phil, I got a question for you.
Shoot.
What kind of dinosaur did you have as a pet?
What kind of dinosaur? Triceratops. There you go. I'm still,
yeah,
trying to figure out what was Dino. The Flintstone dog. Was he a T-Rex? What kind of dinosaur was he?
yeah.
To this day, no one can answer that question.
Well,
So
you're
that's
getting a
homework
laugh
for
out of this,
people.
Wade.
Find out what type of dinosaur Dino was.
Yeah, not a clue on my
Kind
end.
of looked like maybe a Patasaurus, kind of, but that's just me. But
Right.
I mean, back in our day, and Paul, Trevor, Nate, and I, as well as Chris, and maybe you, Wade, we all ate pork, beef, chicken, and then you got Phil over there be eating Brontosaurus burgers.
Woo!
But on that note,
Wait,
I'm
what?
gonna go ahead and I'm gonna jump up off here. So you guys have a
Well,
good night.
Real quick, Glenn, before you go, I got to ask you one question. This was going to be my next question to everyone. What is
Okay.
one game that you consider a full 10 out of 10 masterpiece and why?
Easy. The Pokemon franchise.
Can you narrow it down to one game
I
within
think
the
he means
Pokemon
which
franchise?
game in particular.
Well, actually, yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to jump away from Pokemon, and 10 out of 10, maybe Kingdom Hearts 3.
That is a bold pick. That is a
Kingdom
that is a
Heart-
bold-
I've beaten the first, the second. I've beaten Dream Drop Distance, 358 Days Over 2. Over time, I've absolutely loved the Kingdom Hearts series. I'm a huge Disney fan, not gonna lie.
Okay.
And I also liked how they added Final Fantasy characters. Was like, hell yeah, that's badass. But over time, even though it's just Sora, Donald, and Goofy, and said character, like in Monstropolis, you get Mike and Sully. San Francisco, you get frickin' the Big Hero 6. You get a team up with Baymax. I absolutely love how he can travel through all these Disney worlds and just team up with said person. I mean, over time, I've absolutely loved the Kingdom Hearts series for that.
Okay.
Teaming up with like
That's-
I mean, I might sound like a kid. I mean, for crying out loud, the Kingdom Hearts franchise is rated E for everyone. For crying Tales of the Rainbow.
Right.
I mean, it's got Disney in it. Why wouldn't it be freaking E?
That
At
is
least,
true.
I mean, what are you gonna do? Make it rated M for mature and make the Keyblade drop blood from the Heartless?
I mean, people are. Okay, hold on, real second. Wade, you just popped in a second version of yourself. Are you cloned or something?
No, I will show you my game. That's why I did it secondly. Because I'm on my
Oh,
laptop and my phone. But
oh,
I
gotcha.
have a
Okay.
reason for it. I'll show you when I get there. That's why.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, Glenn, if you've got to go, thank you for joining. And of course, next time we're gaming or something, I'll let you know. Okay.
All right, you guys have a good night, and
You
you
too,
have a
Glenn.
good rest of the stream.
All right. Thank you. All right,
Good night.
Wade. So let's turn to you now. What is your criteria for what you look for in a masterpiece video game? What is that? Mario Tennis on the Game Boy?
Yeah.
Looks that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wade, if you're talking,
Wade,
I believe you're muted.
Sorry. But it has story and it's the best Mario Tennis game retro wise to my knowledge as far as Nintendo.
Okay, fair enough. Real quick, Wade, just a random question. There's a guy in the chat here. His name is Tubar. Are you familiar with this guy?
No.
Okay. All right. I was just curious. Thank you. All right. So
No.
that leads to my next question. And that is, of course, the same thing I asked Glenn. What is one example of a game that you do consider to be a full-on masterpiece? So again, we'll go around the horn here. I'll go first. For me, a game that meets every single one of just about everyone's criteria, even the ones that I didn't mention, like replayability. I can go back to this game at any time and still, I know it like the back of my hand, but I still have fun with it. Super Mario 64. That is not just a masterpiece, but arguably the most important video game of all time, because it proved that gaming did not have to be on just the left, right, up, and down axis. You could move within a 3D space in a digital world and interact with the environment. And think about it. No Super Mario 64, no Ocarina of Time, no Skyrim, no GTA 5, no any of these games that we've mentioned that have come out since the 3D era began. So Super Mario 64 for me is my pick. Easy 10 out of 10. Trevor, what about you?
Do I have to pick only one?
For now, we can go into others later, but for now, just pick one.
Well, as you know, there are 3 games that are tied for my all-time favorite game. But if just one of them had to edge over the other 2, if even very, very slightly, it would have to be Persona 5 Royal.
I had a feeling it'd be that.
Dude, you know me. So, Persona 5 Royal, it is very replayable. I can always go back, and even though I, like you put it, I know the game like the back of my hand, I still find myself enjoying it, and even some of the really big oh shit moments, they still hit me, even though I know to expect them.
Mm-hmm.
The combat's fun. You can fuse personas and basically build your own. The party members are fun. They all have their own stories that go with them as well. It is considered one of the greatest RPGs of all time, and it actually went up against Breath of the Wild in 2017 for Game of the Year. Bet you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
Well,
wow.
Regular 5 did. Royal wasn't out at the time. And then when Royal came out, you had Kasumi/Sumire, who was like the new face of the game, so to speak. Then you had the additional 8th Palace, or 9th, depending on if you count the depths. And there's a whole bunch of other quality of life improvements. Persona 5 Royal is my definition of a perfect game.
Okay. Chris, what about you? Chris, are you there?
I'm here. I'm here. I'm just waiting for Trevor to finish.
No, I'm done. I am done. Have been for a bit.
I'm here, Paul. I was just waiting for Trevor to finish.
Okay, I gotcha. Trevor finished. So, what is your pick?
I'm gonna have to go with Mario 64 just because one that was like all right. Yeah, so I'm going with Mario 64 because one that was probably my first video game, like, period, and two, like, just the historical impact on the games industry that made pretty much bringing games into the third dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, even though the game is like easy, like even like by today's standards, and would be like kind of like not impressive by today's criteria, but it's fun for the nostalgia.
It absolutely it is. Is that all that you have, Chris, or is there more?
Yeah.
Okay. Wade, you mentioned Mario Tennis earlier. Is there a different
Yeah.
game that you would like to pick for a masterpiece, in your opinion?
Probably GoldenEye.
Okay.
We're going.
GoldenEye is a good pick. I'll be honest, I haven't played it, but I've heard that it is one of the most legendary first-person shooters ever, right?
Now, I'm going to tell you I mean, we all know the graphic. If you've seen any trailers, you've seen how I can look past the graphics as long as it's fun. And I only play it multiplayer. I haven't really finished the game per se. But if we're going modern, I would have to say the first Alan Wake.
Alan Wake, you said?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that one. What's that like?
So you know all that drama about the Sweet Baby Inc. They made
Yes.
the second one, so it's the first game of that series, the better of the two, as far as everybody says. But I haven't played two, but as far as but
Okay,
that's
fair enough.
my pick. If you're going modern.
Okay. Nate, what about you?
To be honest, it's kind of a hard pick for me. I'm kind of split between two, only because I actually have a very interesting play styles. I'm either like kind of strategically minded or I'm simulator minded. If I was going to go on the simulator aspect of things, I'm going to pull one out of left field: PC Building Simulator.
Okay.
It's strange. It has a lot of replayability to it, and it's actually fairly accurate. Granted, there's a few small things that aren't there. Plus, it's not really big name developer. And then, if I wanted more strategically minded, this is an old game. I don't remember when it originally came out, but Operation Flashpoint: Rising Dragon.
Operation Flashpoint Rising Dragon. I am not familiar with that one.
It's a first-person shooter. You're kind of acting as a squad commander, so you're giving out commands to basically a bunch of other privates who are there with you, and you're probably acting like a corporal. So it's like, hey, can you guys flank around this direction so I can get supporting fire here while I send this other group that way? It really made it interesting for gameplay, especially in a first-person shooter, because it wasn't just sitting there with, okay, here's enemies, go this direction. It was, I have options on how to go after this fuel depot. Say less.
Okay. I gotcha. Phil, what about you? What is one game that you consider a 10 out of 10 masterpiece?
I will say, even though IGN didn't have it up there, and with 130 million copies, and that's only counting to 2018, Madden can't be beat.
Okay.
Can't be beat. 130 million copies sold as of 2018.
Okay, what years are we talking? Are we talking the good years or are we talking the current year?
How many years?
We're talking like the 05, 07 when it was good, or are we talking
about
rinse and
overall?
repeat?
Overall, since 2018, it's sold 130 million copies.
Okay. Fair enough.
I haven't played it since 2018. Don't have any desire to play more Madden. I'm all Madden out. But yeah, what can you say? You know, like I said, I have other games. I tend lately, the last 6 years, play more MMOs. So, but as far as like RPGs, yeah, I have to give it to Madden. If you want to call it an RPG, but technically it's not an RPG. That's a multiplayer game. So,
Right.
that's another thing I didn't get to say. I was going to say was another criteria for me about games. Is it an RPG? Does it have an ability to be also multiplayer? You know, you can play Battlefront solo. It's not
Yeah.
as fun, but you can play it just for solo. You know, I like games that have the ability to say if you want to play it solo, you can, but if you want to go to a multiplayer platform, you can play it multiplayer.
I agree. In fact, I honestly hate it when games are only multiplayer. Some games I'll admit that's kind of part of their charm. Like for example, Team Fortress 2, there really wasn't a story mode to that, but the multiplayer was fun enough to where I could get by with that. But then you have EA Battlefront 2015. That should have had some form of campaign to it. Or Overwatch. Again, Overwatch should have had a campaign to it. But
Sorry, I thought you were done. My bad. Go ahead.
Well, basically what I was going to say, Trevor, is just neither of them did, and I can't think of a good excuse why.
Well, on my end, you cut out, so it made it sound like you were done. And then once I spoke, I realized, or you started talking again, and I realized I cut in the middle of you. I apologize. That was my internet.
It's all right, man. You're good. What were you going to say?
Another online only, almost anyway, game that I would like to mention would be the Splatoon series. You've played those, right, Paul?
I played 2 a little bit.
It does have an interesting story campaign, but once you get done with the story, the online mode is literally all you have left to enjoy the game. And it's phenomenal. It is one of the few Nintendo games that actually runs pretty well online.
Yeah.
However,
in fact, real quick,
You
just
got it.
cutting in, you could almost say that that's a criteria in and of itself. If a game has a story, what's its post-game content look like?
I agree. And I love me some Splatoon. I will get hit with these moods where Splatoon 3 is one of the only games I want to play, and I'll spend hours just doing Turf Wars or Salmon Run. But when your internet's not working and that's what you're in the mood to do, kind of kills it.
I've been there.
I would also want to point out one thing, Paul, and I know Nate will agree with me. There's a lot of games missing, in particular, the Japanese games, which will probably be off the charts here. We don't have Dynasty Warriors on that list. Dynasty Warriors overall worldwide, probably one of the most popular games out there. There's I said, there's a ton of games. I don't know where IGN got their list. Like I said, you can't miss Madden, but somehow they missed Madden. Okay. But Dynasty Warriors, definitely in Japan, is probably 60 or 70 million on its own. You know, and there's a ton of Japanese games that I can mention that we never even heard of, but are bestsellers over in Japan.
Right. And real quick, I want to jump in. I know he just dipped out Wade, if you're still out there watching, thank you for joining us. And thank you for giving your input too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, man.
So I guess with that, it's kind of more open form now. So what's some other games that we consider? And here's a good question too. What are some games that almost would have made masterpiece level for you, but something holds it back? I'll go ahead and give you guys one now. For me, Arkham Knight, except it's two things that hold that game back. Number one, overuse of the Batmobile. Number two, little to no boss fights. And the ones that we do get, honestly, kind of suck. Like
Deathstroke.
Yeah, the Deathstroke fight in Arkham Knight was a joke compared to what he was in Arkham Origins. Frankly, I would literally have been happy if they had just copy and pasted Deathstroke's moveset from Origins to Knight, and that's what the fight was, except now you've got Arkham Knight Batman's extended arsenal. But no, it's just the tank stuff again.
Yeah, I get that. I haven't played Arkham Knight, but I have seen some footage of it. I've seen some of his boss fight, and yeah, it does honestly look easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry, guys.
I was gonna say the most you get of Deathstroke in Arkham Knight, you get that stupid tank fight, and then after you destroy his tank, then you just get a cutscene where Batman just one-hit KOs him. Like, never in a million years would Batman KO Deathstroke, ever.
So, yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with that one.
Okay. But another game that I think we've already mentioned some, you guys have, that I agree with. Trevor, you already mentioned Ocarina of Time. Yes, controversy with its fan base aside, that game is 100% a masterpiece.
Like I told you, go ahead.
Nate, you mentioned World at War earlier. I also agree. In fact, truthfully, I would consider looking at the story of the campaign, because that's what I care about most, is the story with these type of games. Every single Call of Duty, from Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare, the good one, all the way to Black Ops 2, every single one of them is a contender for masterpiece. Asterisk, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 is kind of questionable. Again, the original Modern Warfare 3. I hate that I have to say that.
And I take it you haven't played those games on Veteran.
No.
You're going to try it one day. You'll find out why I hate grenades.
I might just do that sometime. I mean, I've got the original Call of Duty 4 here on Steam. I might install it and start playing it again.
You hear that, Phil? Paul's going to play a game on hard.
No,
I never said that.
I'm already about ready to yank my eyeballs out because your comment, Paul said, but I'll be quiet and wait my turn. Then I'll snap into him like a Slim Jim.
I think you should stream it on Veteran. Especially World at War. So we can all watch him commit war crimes.
But again, difficulty aside, the story of those games, especially World at War. Like, I remember there was this one Memorial Day. I want to say it was last Memorial Day. You and I were working in the cave together, Nate. And we went on, and we had this like extended discussion / rant on Memorial Day of how good of a game World at War was and how bad of a game Call of Duty WWII was. I refuse to call that World War II.
Oh, could call it Whiskey, Whiskey, India, India.
I could. Because one portrayed the true grim nature of World War II, where the other one was a feel-good story where it perhaps should not have been.
Yeah, one had me willingly committing war crimes. The other one had me wanting to knowingly commit war crimes.
Right. So, Phil, what were you going to say?
Besides ripping your eyeballs out. Look. There's nothing wrong with liking a story in a game. But if you want a movie, watch a movie. Playing the game just to advance the storyline, no. It's the
There's that.
gameplay. You're playing a game. It's the gameplay. There's somewhat very small game storyline in World of Ships. All right. But it's all about playing the game. Period.
I know that.
No. You said you're saying the storyline. I hear that, and that's a trigger word for me. You know this, Paul. How long have you
Here's-
noticed
okay,
it? For
let
years
me
now,
let me
right?
let me clarify, Phil. I'm talking about with Call of Duty. I'm not saying that the gameplay isn't
Okay.
important. I
I'll
recognize it
clear.
is.
I'll clear all games. Look, it's nice that in this modern day you get nice, good-looking, cutscenes. That's all well and good. If you want to just do that, if you're going to play a game just for that, there's plenty of people on YouTube that cuts out all the gameplay, attaches all the movie-like cinematography of the game, and you can watch that and save yourself $60 in gameplay. I'm a person that wants to play the game. If the game stinks and the cinematography or the storyline's great, it ain't doing nothing for me.
I agree.
want good
There's
gameplay. Gameplay has to be number one.
May I add to that? So
Yeah.
there's one game franchise I'm a pretty big fan of, but are infamous for what Phil was just addressing. The Xenoblade Chronicles series. I love the RPG elements. I like the combat. Well, when I feel like liking it anyway. The stories are good, but the games are very cutscene heavy. Xenoblade 2 alone had 20 hours of cutscenes. I kid you not.
that's kind of ridiculous.
I'll
Yeah.
give you guys an example that especially YouTube went crazy for. About a couple years ago, they announced they're coming out with the new Star Wars video game. And nobody's seen any gameplay for this game. Great cutscenes, no gameplay. And
Are you talking
everybody's
about the
waiting-
Old Republic remake?
No, I'm talking about that game they're supposed to be releasing. I don't know if it's coming out this year or next year. Remember,
Oh, Outlaws.
Yeah.
That one.
there's two of them they actually have advertisements for, and it's again,
And Eclipse.
an Eclipse.
Eclipse.
They have nothing but cinematography. It doesn't have any gameplay. You're a gamer, or people are supposed to be gamers. How can you call, even before it's released, a great game when you have no video, no imagery of any gameplay?
Well, remember, Phil, this is Star Wars we're dealing with. They've
They're
got
not
their
the
own
only ones.
problems.
They're just the two off the that's just one off the top of my head. That's why
I
I
know.
said first thing should be at top as an individual. Gameplay. Because if the gameplay stinks, again, cutscenes ain't going to do nothing for you. Right?
Right.
Right.
Okay. So, and believe me, there's a lot of MMOs, and they can
Nice
probably
helmet, Nate.
who played some games similar. There's a little game story mode over there in World of Ships, but they ain't playing World of Ships for cutscenes. He's playing that game because he wants to take his ship out. He wants to start blowing stuff up. Am I right, Nate?
Yes. I should
There you
sit
go.
there and
Cutscenes
think
ain't going to
island.
do nothing. You're more in that type of game setting. You're just worried about your ship and blowing up ships. Nothing else matters. And
Yes,
if your ship stinks, you better get a new ship. That's how that works. That's how all games should work. Like I said, I don't mind a story mode. As long as the story mode goes good with the gameplay. Skyrim, the story goes with the gameplay. You can't say the gameplay stinks. The gameplay even better than whatever story mode is in the game.
Especially
And that goes
with
for
mods.
Oblivion. And that goes for every game going back into Elder Scrolls. Same thing for the Fallout series. Yes, there are stories. But you know what? You're not playing the game for the story. You're playing the game because in Fallout, you want to kill radiated people. Especially there in the online game in West Virginia, which I enjoy, killing people out in West Virginia, which is an illegal state, by the way.
Well, you've honestly kind of proven what it is that my point is, Phil.
I'm glad I
I'm not
can prove
I'm
it.
I'm not saying that one should be over the other. To me, both gameplay and story should work harmoniously
And
together.
games were designed, and particularly in the 80s and the 90s, when they really start making these games past the little pixel Atari 2600 ColecoVision. When you buy a game brand new, you should be expecting to play 50 hours on average. If you're not playing 50 hours on average on that game, maybe even say if you're really good at it, you're lucky you're good at it, 30 hours, and you get any enjoyment out of it, then that game wasn't worth the dime you spent money on. You know?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, let's be honest, you're not looking at an ad saying, get this game. 9 times out of 10, when you're getting a game, Nate will say, oh, this game's great. You got to play this. That is word of mouth still in video games is a big deal.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Although
if
I
three
have
of us say the new Mario Kart stinks, I can guarantee you will have second thoughts before you even think about buying the game.
yeah. I mean,
That's
but
how it
then
works. Word of mouth in video games is still a big deal.
in fairness, though, Phil, I have been burned by word of mouth before with No Man's Sky when it first released.
Well, who was the
Every-
person that told you to buy No Man's Sky? That's
one
the
of my
first-
one of my superiors in the Navy at the time, because I was in Okinawa when it released.
Oh, I understand that. So if he didn't buy the game, you were going to drop and give him 20. Yeah, that's okay.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, but
Let's just say this. Nate was in the Navy. Nate, did you buy No Man's Sky?
I
Nate
wasn't
was
in
not in the
Navy.
military.
Oh, you weren't?
I'm
I
just
thought
a
you were in the
brat.
Navy. Huh?
I'm just a brat.
You're just a brat. You're a brat of someone that served.
Yep.
Okay, that's good enough.
He's Chair Force loyal.
Off
So-
we
so-
go into the wild blue yonder.
Let me just say this. Your boss over there where you guys work at comes to you guys and said, you guys need to buy this game. How many of you guys are going to actually buy that game?
I would
All
look at her and be
donations.
like,
Any
"Who
of
are
you
you,
buy it
and
just
what
to
have
say
you
it.
done with Tammy?"
Nate, would you buy the game? Just because your boss said you buy the game?
No, but I would at least investigate it. Now, if you made it a
Investigate it.
work
Unlike
requirement,
Paul,
that'd
who
be a
bought
different
No
story.
Man's Sky because it was practically ordered to or suckered to, however you want to fulfill it.
I'll agree. I was suckered into it.
You should have went
I
to
mean-
your superior and asked for your money back.
I'm pretty sure I did, actually.
I will say, I am a kind of a living example of what we're talking about here. I used to be like, I'm not gonna say a Fire Emblem hater, but I used to be someone who was very indifferent on the franchise and refused to touch it with a 30-foot pole. And then Fire Emblem Three Houses showed a very intriguing gameplay trailer, and I'm like, that actually looks fun. So word of mouth can absolutely slander things that are actually an amazing thing, because now Fire Emblem has become one of my 4 favorite video game franchises of all time. And I've went further than Three Houses. I've went to Awakening, I've played Fates before, I played Engage, I've played some of the older titles as well. So what Nate said and what Phil have said is word of mouth is a very, very big thing, and word of mouth can make or break a franchise.
I remember a gaming company, early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. The big competition was between EA and 3DO.
Mm-hmm.
There were 1 and 2. And EA is an example, even though lately not so good, of a company that had success and maintained success. 3DO is a company that shows you what not to do and how they destroyed themselves. Okay? 3DO, if you were around 2000-ish, most of their games were probably in the top 20. They made some great games. Probably the best one you probably would know would be Army Men. People love that game. Why, I don't know, but they love that game. But One day we'll have to discuss how 3DO destroyed itself. But some of these games, sometimes when a company falls like they do, yeah, they take the great games with them. So that's why lately for me, I love multiplayer games. I love MMOs. And I've been playing MMOs since about 2001. Most people that are gamers tend to be nowadays getting away from the single player games in a sense. They want the MMO because they can play by themselves in an MMO, but majority of the time you're playing with other people, you know. And I would say if they were putting, dollar signs, that top 10 list, none of them games could probably compare what World of Warcraft makes in a year. Couldn't touch World of Tanks and World of Ships and World of Planes. Couldn't touch them. Wouldn't be in the same zip code. I'm just saying. Some of the MMOs outdo video games. And that is why in the early 2000s, a lot of these games that would normally be RPGs start adding multiplayer options on their games. Because they were trying to compete with the MMOs. So, but, I think in this day and age, when you call something a masterpiece, you got people's own opinions about it. But the safe way to say is how many people are playing the game, how many people are buying the game, own the game, and would recommend it. If it's not being sold, then no people are buying it. There's no other way to compare. It's typical anything in your daily life. If you go to a McDonald's and no one's going to Burger King ain't selling nothing. It's going out of business. Same thing for a video game. I can't tell you how many video games a company makes, and they'll have 2-3 great games a year, yet they'll have 3 or 4 flops.
Yeah.
It happens quite a lot. Big names.
Yeah.
EA has done some flops. And most of the flops isn't the game's fault. They rush a release. They don't double check their game. They don't make sure everything's okay. Look, as a customer, I can guarantee it, everybody here, you would rather they announce a delay in the game than to release the game buggy.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Look
Yeah.
at Tears of the Kingdom. They delayed that 4 or 5 different times, Trevor, and then it comes out and it's amazing.
It was, I think it was slated to come out in late 20 or early 21, then got pushed back
21.
because of the pandemic. Yeah, I believe that game got delayed at least 2 or 3 times, if not more.
Mhm.
I'm all for delays, even in MMOs. If they say, "Oh, it's coming out April this year," but then they announce, "Well, we're going to push it to September of this year," I'd rather them do the delay than release it as buggy. That's
Hey,
why
Paul.
I can't believe they released remastered Battlefront, knowing what all the problems they had. That's a classic mistake right there. Blunder
Yes.
of all blunders.
Yes, Trevor.
Absolutely. First off, sorry, Phil. My internet was cutting out again. I thought you were finished. I apologize.
That's okay, man. That's okay.
Also, an example you and I were talking about, and I think some of the TDK members ran on it, maybe Chris. We were talking about how Pokemon Scarlet and Violet had an absolutely horrifying release because they were so rushed because the Pokemon
heard.
Company, the Pokemon Company stays on this strict every 3-year schedule, and that's going to be their undoing in the end. 3 years is not long enough to build a game as ambitious as Scarlet and Violet were from the ground up.
Right. Basically, they tried to copy the whole Breath of the Wild formula, but for Pokemon. And how many years did it take for us to get Breath of the Wild and then Tears of the Kingdom?
I think Breath of the Wild was in development for 4 or 5 years, and then Tears began immediately once Breath of the Wild's DLC was over.
Exactly.
And I think Breath of the Wild's final DLC was in 18, so I think it took like 6 years. Not 6, 5. Sorry.
Look how long people are waiting for Elder Scrolls 6. We're
That's
still
that.
waiting for it.
That game's
Okay,
never coming out.
Okay, let's place bets right now. What's coming out next? Elder Scrolls 6 or Half-Life 3?
Elder Scrolls 6. They already had announced it. They said
Elder-
after that
I-
space flop, what was that space game they released?
Starfield?
Starfield.
Yeah, that its next game is supposed to be Elder Scrolls 6.
I'm gonna bet Elder
Okay.
Scrolls 6.
Yeah,
But I
Elder
would not
Scrolls
recommend
6.
people buying that game on day one. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Wait until the Game of the Year edition or the special edition with all the DLCs included, which normally takes 2 or 3 years after release, then buy the game. Because if you're going to buy the game and then you're going to wait a couple months for all these DLCs, look, I guess most of us are going to buy it on Steam anyway, so the DLC is not a big deal buying on the DLCs. But before, if you were to buy it on console, you would have had to take that game, trade it in, get the new one with all the DLCs, right?
Or
There you
just
go.
buy the DLC separate.
Nowadays, you can do it. You didn't have that option. Now, just a couple of years ago, they had the option. Everybody, they had this thing called Creation Club, where people put this stuff out. Bethesda allowed them to sell it. They got a cut. Then Bethesda decided to make a little bit more money. We're going to sell the anniversary edition with all that Creation Club. People spent over $300 for all them items in Creation Club, and they gave it away for free 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
So, smart people, sometimes certain games, it's okay.
Yeah, that is something I don't like that gaming has become, is how now DLC is not even a luxury anymore. It's an expectation.
Yep. I mean,
look
love
at how.
Hogwarts, and I don't know if everybody here played Hogwarts. That's
yeah.
one of the few games recently that I bought within 3 years on day one. I was happy with my purchase and I was happy with the game. Hopefully there'll be more things added to it down the road.
I'm pretty sure there
rare
will be.
circumstance. That's a rare circumstance for me to buy a game. I'm so wanting to buy this Dragon Dogma 2, what's it called? The new one? This new game?
You got it.
Yeah, it looks awesome. $70. Very rarely do I fork out $70. I'm going to wait for that to come down to at least $50 before I pop out some money. Even though the game looks awesome. And I know I sounded like Cash Money complaining about spending $70 on a video.
If you want to
It's
save
alright,
a few
bud.
bucks, there's a few gray areas that you can go to get the product keys. I'm not saying it's 100% legal, but you
Oh,
can.
I think
no.
I know what you're talking about. CD keys, right?
Yes, and a few others.
Flying
And
the pirate flag, are we?
I mean,
cannot confirm nor deny whether or not I use CD keys.
I'm wearing a steel pot, and I've got
For
a
legal reasons, that is
IJN
for
flag.
legal reasons, we are just joking.
Exactly.
Yes.
You'll have to replace the naval jack of Japan with a pirate flag there, Nate.
Well,
I
wait, if I'm going
mean-
to truly be a rebel.
look
somewhere-
behind me. I'm still flying an Israel flag.
That doesn't count.
I know.
Now, I
Black
want to
Dragon
point
says CD
something out.
keys are legal.
I want to point something out. While we were discussing the things that make a video game important to us and what makes a masterpiece, not a single one of us said graphics.
Exactly, because a game can have the most basic graphics but still be fun, and yet a game, you already said it, Phil, in your rant against me. A game can have the best graphics in the world, but if the gameplay is crap, who cares? That was my issue with No Man's Sky when it released. I've heard it's a great game now. I have it in my Steam accounts, having bought it since then. I still have yet to actually play it because I was burned by the original
The person
experience.
that told you to buy this No Man's Sky, how well did you know him, and how many times have you ever gamed with this person?
I only knew him at work.
And what was their rank?
Not a reason to buy a game. Not a reason. You have
Yeah,
to.
I know that
look,
now.
Well, I'm glad you learned a lesson. But when it comes to video games, it's like picking your friends. Not everybody can be your friend. Okay? You have to have trust. And they have to know you and what games you like. Now, No Man's Sky, I heard the lousiest reviews about it. But for that person that told you, he could love that game all he wants. It could probably be the greatest game ever to him.
True.
But if, like me, Nate, and Trevor told you that's the lousiest games, it's like eating a piece of chewing gum, Dentine or Trident, and it tells you 4 out of 5 dentists approve. There's always one dentist there that doesn't approve. But if the other 4 says they don't approve, I would take the advice of the 4 versus the 1. Numbers matter, Paul. Numbers matter.
Oh yes.
Phil's right.
That is true. Trevor, is everything okay on your end connection wise?
Yeah, I haven't had any connection issues since I accidentally cut over Phil a few minutes ago.
Yeah, Trevor's kind of like, it sounds like he's kind of breaking up. At least.
Really?
Every
I don't
once
hear
in
it.
a while. Every once in a while.
I
Yeah.
haven't really noticed.
No, Paul, I know you were asking us about some games that almost made the masterpiece mark, but didn't quite make it there because something held it back.
Yeah.
I just thought of one that is that status for me, assuming we're able to go back to that topic. I can wait if
Go
we
ahead.
need to.
Go ahead.
One of them for me would be Shin Megami Tensei 5. The game was hyped up among Shin Megami Tensei fans when it first was announced. When it came out, it was a great game. And it's getting like a better version called Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance later on this year, actually. What held it back is the fact that compared to other Shin Megami Tensei games and even other Atlas properties, period, the story kind of felt lacking in the end. That and the final boss was a complete joke.
I believe it.
So it had a great story until it fell flat in the end, basically. It had a very unique demon creation system. The combat was a lot of fun. There were a few plot twists and oh shit moments, but I think the ending is what made it really dip down from perfection to me.
You've said something very similar about a different game once before, Bayonetta 3.
Yeah, that game was really great. I hate the fact that Bayonetta's voice actor changed, even though I completely understand why it did. That's just a personal thing of mine. Helena Taylor will always be Bayonetta to me. But at the same time, I don't support what she did. That's a story for a different day. Anyway,
Right.
the ending of Bayonetta 3 is what absolutely mutilated the game for me. The fact that... Do you care about spoilers?
Go ahead.
The fact that Bayonetta herself was killed and passed her title of Bayonetta down to Viola, who was in no way, shape, or form worthy for that. I think it's the fact that Bayonetta was killed. I mean, she's the reason people keep coming back to the series. She's a badass. Everyone loves her. She's charming. And they killed off not only the main character, but literally the only reason people keep coming back to the series.
That is true.
So, Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Bayonetta 3, they both share the same problem where the ending just sucked. And that's basically 2 games of mine that fell short of masterpiece in a nutshell just because. Which Bayonetta 2, by the way, perfect game. I have 0 complaints.
Okay. So, real quick, kind of transitioning from what you just said about Bayonetta 2, Trevor, we are going to go ahead and wrap this up within the next 5 minutes. But before we do that, does anyone want to shout out some other masterpiece level games for them? I'll go ahead and say, I mean, it's probably the most streamed game on my channel. Skyrim is a masterpiece with or without mods, but trust me, with mods makes it whole the better. All the Kingdom Hearts games that have numbers in the title, so 1, 2, and 3, I could take or leave the side games, or at least a few of them. Let me look through my Steam library here real quick. Obviously, Mario Kart 8 is in its current form with the new tracks now is an absolute masterpiece. Persona 5, I'm going to agree with Trevor on that one for sure. Sonic Frontiers, that is one of the best Sonic games in a long time because, again, it's just full open world 3D, whereas before they were just trying to cram a bunch of 2D stuff down your throat when it perhaps didn't need to be. And here's an interesting category of game that we really didn't touch on: indie games. My pick
think-
would probably, you know what I'm
Sorry.
going for, right, Trevor?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff, if you're listening, this one goes out to you. But my pick for like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece indie game, Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Because even though Five Nights at Freddy's 1 is classic in its own right, in fact, some might argue that it is also a masterpiece, which I could see. For me, Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is just all the better because that game took what worked in Five Nights at Freddy's and made it better and more complex, but not
Did you play that
too
game,
much.
Paul?
I started playing it once, but never finished.
Why is that?
Work.
Okay. Work takes 40 hours. That's really
I was-
2 days of your
I
life.
may or may not have
Five other
playing it
days.
during work. Right,
Mm.
Trevor?
Tammy, if you're watching, I saw nothing.
But I saw everything.
Okay.
Thank you, Nate.
So Paul, for wait, let me make sure. Are you done with your list of shoutouts yet?
Yes, I'm done.
Okay. So for me, for indie games, there are two in particular I really want to shout out. Those being Hollow Knight and Shovel Knight. Two perfect games. Hollow Knight is a 2D Metroidvania, whereas Shovel Knight is level-based, but both of them are incredible. Fire Emblem Three Houses and Awakening, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, Twilight Princess, controversial, but Skyward Sword. I absolutely adore Skyward Sword. Monster Hunter Rise is a total masterpiece. The Lies of P. Suck it, Paul. I know you don't like Souls-likes all that much. But Lies of P is incredible.
Really?
I probably should have worded that better. I'm sorry.
I'm kidding,
Uh,
dude.
Okay. Persona 3 Reload, I'm not done with it yet, but it has been very faithful to the original. Persona 4 Golden is incredible. Mario RPG, both the original and the remake. Mario Odyssey. Mario Galaxy, my all-time favorite Mario game is Galaxy. Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Aria of Sorrow. Metroid Dread, Octopath Traveler 2, Skylanders Trap Team, and Mortal Kombat 11. You're probably really going to feel that one, Paul.
Oh yeah, 100%. Real quick, Trevor. Another dime a dozen, petty dictator.
Petty? I am mighty.
Mighty stupid's what you are, Shao Kahn.
And I could honestly go on and on forever about games that I love and think are masterpieces, but I'd be here at least another half hour, and I don't think we have time for that. So
Exactly.
I'm gonna end it there before my rave can. Oh wait, the Ace Attorney franchise. I love all of those too. Okay, I'm done.
Okay. Phil, is there any other games you want to shout out?
Wait, Smash Ultimate and Mario Kart and Minecraft. Okay, now
Yes.
I'm done for real.
I'll give a shout out to Sid Meier's Civilization. That's
Okay.
an awesome series of games. Let's see. Empire, all the Total Wars. That's great. Dynasty Warriors, definitely. That's just that on top of my head. But I'm surprised here that you youngins, none of you mentioned Farmville. And don't deny that you guys never played Farmville.
You're
Because I know
right.
You guys
Farm-
played
I did.
Farmville.
Farmville
I
was
pl-
the GOAT back in the day.
You
I
know?
played Farmville. I played it.
Nate's going to delete his account, but I know he played. I can tell he played. He can't hide it from me.
That was
I'm trying to remember what
2009, man.
Farmville
Good
was.
lord, I was a freshman.
You know, you were a freshman in 2009,
Yeah.
baby.
I think I didn't get Facebook until like 2011, so I can't say I really played it.
Black Dragon has never played it, allegedly.
Okay, so see, me and Black Dragon are in the Cool People Club. We didn't play that game.
You sure, Nate? You never played Farmville?
To
I
my
can see you
knowledge,
saying it's
no.
6 o'clock. It's 6 p.m. I gotta get my corn that I planted. No,
Nah.
3 more hours and my strawberries are ready.
I've played a few games that are similar in that, but most of them are much more newer mobile games.
I will tell you one game that does not make sense to me is why someone wants to play a game called the Simulator for Cutting Grass. Why?
Farming
Well, I
tractor
mean,
simulator.
Huh?
well, I mean,
There's
well,
some good simulators, but really, lawnmower? Really? You want to go out
Well-
front, start your own lawnmower, and go to get the,
That's
guess
for the
what
people in
you
the
don't
inner
have to
cities
start.
that don't have grass
Well,
to cut.
hey, Chris, you can back me up on this one. Glenn was obsessed with power washing simulator for a while, wasn't he, Chris?
But then again, the best simulator of all time is Goat Simulator.
Yes.
Only for the memes.
I guess.
Hey,
Chris.
People were talking over each other, but yes, Trevor, to answer your question.
Hey, Paul. I guess you could say that game is the GOAT.
Exactly. So, Phil, is there any other games you got?
Dragon Age. That's a great game and a great series.
Okay.
So, that's pretty much it for known popular. I would say, if you want to call them, a masterpiece. There's a lot of games out there that I consider a masterpiece, but a lot of people don't. So I wouldn't, for me, masterpiece, but for everybody else, no. So, again, you got to acknowledge, and I do, that in particular, when you like a game and 20 other people don't, that's fine that you like it, but you have to face facts. 20 other people, you're outvoted,
Of course.
It's nothing
So
wrong
that-
with liking a game that other people don't like to play. All right, look, I have a lot of friends that would not touch Fallout 76.
I
when that
used to
game
be
was-
one of
MMO
those.
came out, people were like, no. It was too buggy. It was unfinished. It should never have been released the way it was, particularly buggy as it was. But here we are years later. I would say there's no complaints in that game. So, but at the
Okay.
time, I couldn't deny people, it was buggy,
Right.
And I think that another thing plays into gameplay that a lot of people never taken, and I will say more for MMOs, is when you're playing a game like an MMO, you're a victim of your internet. So if
Yes.
spiked and your game gets super laggy, playing a game like World of Ships is not a game you better be having bad internet connection. You don't want
Mhm.
ship. You're timing out, and then you have to relog, and your ship sunk. There's a difference. I always say between a MMO and an RPG. The RPG, even if your internet's bad, you're not internet dependent on that.
Who's got?
Oh, that was
music
me,
in
sorry.
the background?
You
I
play
may or may not
Skyrim,
be.
Paul.
I may or may not be tuning my guitar because I've got a special surprise for Trevor at the end.
Oh Lordy.
Oh boy.
He's going to sing
boy.
for you. But
boy.
let's say you play an RPG, Skyrim, the internet crashes. You can still play your game. You can still play your game. You play an MMO and your internet crashes. You ain't got no choice. You can't play. You're done. So
I got something that will solve a little bit of that latency delay for internet games. Hardwire.
yes. Or
He right.
don't steal your neighbor's internet. That'd probably be another thing. Or if someone's in your house and you don't have a lot of bandwidth, and someone decides to stream a movie, maybe don't play an MMO at the same time.
And if you're really old, you don't let them talk on the phone while you're on the internet.
There you go.
Exactly.
I'm in total control of my internet. I have the power to, if I want someone to get on with their phone, I can. They have to come from me for the password. But yeah, if I want to, I can shut their connections off. So when I play my MMO, I don't have anybody bothering me. It's my internet. I pay for it. I control it.
Yeah.
See, there's nothing worse on a holiday, and you have 5 people over on with their phone doing God knows what, and you're trying to play, all right, World of Ships, and you're getting all this lag and everything, and no, impossible. You can't. So you have to be cold and say, your phones are done.
Yeah, that is true.
My
Nate,
PSR rating is not going down for someone using their phone.
understandable. Nate, is there any further games you want to shout out?
I know Phil's probably going to rag on this about pretty imagery in a game, but I have to sit there and give it to American Tropic Simulator. It's gotten way better over the years.
Wait a minute, did you say American Truck Simulator?
Yes.
Did you say the American Truck? Well, I'll forgive you because you didn't say European Truck Simulator.
You. Who wants to sit there and drive a Scania? W900 all the way.
Well, I can see people, even though it's hard for me, driving the truck simulator. The simulator I don't see why people want to play is the jail simulators. Why do you want to play a game about people in jail? It doesn't. I don't see the appeal in that.
Yeah, there's certain ones that I just can't wrap my head around. There's others that's like, okay, I can wrap my head around.
But the truck simulator, I can understand a bit. Not the European ones, but their trucks look so
weird.
Yes.
So do the Japanese.
They have that. Pretty much European trucks have that. They don't have the nose.
Yeah, they got those cab over designs.
Yeah, and then they don't have one big tractor trailer. Normally they have 2 or 3 quarter-sized trailers. So, it could be the same length of our trailer, but why have 2 or 3 smaller trailers when you can have just one standardized large trailer? Europeans don't make any sense.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with their own weird laws and regulations.
Yep.
And then something I did also want to mention it's not a game per se, Paul, but I think we have an idea for another stream here, and you can probably thank Phil for this idea, is we should really kind of discuss kind of why certain newer games tend to be much more buggy and why they have changed our perception of the way we look at video games.
That is actually a good idea. So, I'll want to look into this a little bit myself so that I can hopefully contribute a little bit more to the conversation. But yeah, that is definitely a topic we can cover on here. Chris, is there any games that you want to shout out before we go?
As far as masterpieces go,
yes.
I guess I'm not sure. Let's see. I guess for as far as Metroid goes, I would say the first Metroid Prime, because I remember I have fond memories when I first played that as a kid. I don't remember what year that came out. Must have been between 2001 and 4 or something like that. Should I have played a Metroid game at that young an age? That's debatable, but still, the game was fun, and I did play the remaster that came out last year, and just just exploring Talon 4 and learning the lore about the planet and the events of the game, because that's how you basically even know what the heck's even going on in that game. You kind of have to discover it for yourself. The game doesn't ever once every so often, the game will tell you go here to investigate this thing, but the game doesn't spoon feed the story to you at all. Although that does change my Prime 3, where there is a more overt storyline, but there's still plenty of lore and learning and exploration to do. But going back to the first game, that's probably the one I'd give a shout out to.
Okay, and I think those are all great picks. Well, guys, I think that was it as far as how far we can go into this topic. So we're going to go ahead and shut it down. However, I'm starting a new tradition for Trevor,
Oh dear.
and I'm stealing this kind of from another quote unquote show that he will oftentimes work with our friend Kobe on Aftermath.
Oh boy.
Trevor, I think you know what you need to do here. So let me get the sound set right, and hopefully you hear this.
This is going to go off the rails, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh boy!
Okay.
You
That's
totally
about-
missed what I. You
That's
totally
about-
missed what I did, didn't you?
Oh, I heard it. That's about as much as I'm going to do, though.
No.
And
No, I don't think you visually saw what I did.
oh, no, I didn't. I was too focused on getting the playing right, which I know I'm.
Nice, Trevor.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you. Props to my girlfriend. She got me that for Christmas.
The joke being behind that is that Trevor will quote unquote destroy Kobe's studio.
Yep.
In Death Battle Aftermath like on the Facebook page. So I know being a virtual call like this, there's nothing really to destroy, but I thought that I had to do that at least once.
Here, I punched the camera. That's me destroying the studio.
I feel like for this moment, I almost need like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy or Fortunate Son as an outro.
Yes. Here. Wait, no. Nate, I've got the perfect thing for you here.
Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. He ain't gonna jump no more.
That is the most Nate outro I have ever seen in my life.
Exactly. And let's see. Here's of course one for Glenn.
Dummy, yeah. Yeah. Dummy, yeah. Yeah. Dummy, yeah. Yeah.
I knew it was going to be that.
Yeah,
I knew it as well. But by the way, where'd Phil go? Did he already dip?
he had to
Yeah,
dip.
he just
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll message him later, but I'll play
hope he
this
doesn't
real
scare
quick
him
for
off.
Phil.
Excuse me, I'd just like to ask a question. What does God need with a starship? I said, what does God need with a starship?
Jim, what are you doing? I'm asking you a question.
And
Well-
then for Chris and Trevor, there's this.
Thanks, Paul.
You are welcome.
By the way,
I hate-
Nathan,
Yes.
I was gonna say every Wednesday we troll Trevor with whoopers in a tradition called Whooper
Oh, he knows.
Wednesday. Oh,
He
He
knows.
does. Okay.
Okay.
And Nate's not even in TDK, and he's going to be in on this. I can already tell.
Why do you think I brought it up?
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, we are going to go ahead and end this for the night. So thank you guys for everyone who watched. Thank you to, of course, Trevor, Chris, Phil, Nate, and Wade, and Glenn for popping in here and talking about this with me. I think tonight was a success. Next week,
think
we're
so.
going to have another open panel stream like this. What the topic's going to be, I think it'll be a very similar topic to what this is, except instead of video games, it's going to be movies. So next week is going to be what makes a masterpiece movie.
Arlie Ermy.
Don't think I'll be in on that one because I'm not as much of a movie person as I am a game person. Although I did recently watch the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and that was amazing.
Peach, you're so
You're
cool.
so cool.
And with my star, we're gonna
roll.
Chris, you better clip this.
Will do.
Peach,
right.
understand.
That's
I'm
enough, Trevor.
gonna love. Okay.
All
I'm
right.
gonna make it whole for Kobe.
That's okay. All right. So everyone, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will talk to you guys later.